Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, and before the United States Supreme Court, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. For today's episode, we delve into the world of politics, something I don't normally comment on, but I wanted to comment on this because it's particularly notable. McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, has just lost his job as Speaker of the House, the first person, I believe, ever to be ousted as Speaker of the House due to a resolution essentially of no confidence. For those of you more familiar with a parliamentary system, that's basically what this boiled down to, is a vote of no confidence. They've kicked him out as Speaker. The problem being who's going to replace him is not at all obvious, and the odds of it being McCarthy are actually pretty good. So yeah, it's the weirdest vote of no confidence ever, because the odds of the guy that you just ousted becoming the guy are pretty high, because nothing fundamentally seems to have changed in the political calculus in the intervening months, right? Kevin McCarthy was elected in January after, what was it, 16 rounds that they went to elect a speaker. And, you know, there were a couple holdouts in the Republican Party. The Republicans hold a 4-seat majority in the House. So, you know, it's a bare majority. So they were able to get, you know, a dozen Republicans together or so to prevent McCarthy from becoming Speaker. But they couldn't get the votes for anybody else, right? So all the Democrats voted for Jeffries, a Democrat. So they all voted for a Democrat. You know, the overwhelming majority of the House votes for McCarthy, and then you got like 12 holdouts, give or take. It depends, of course, when you're counting between the various rounds. But you got like a dozen holdouts. They're like McCarthy, but no one else. And the problem is no one else wants the job. Jordan doesn't want the job. Scalise doesn't want the job. No one else wants the job, which also incidentally is pretty notable, by the way, incidentally, that no one wants the job. Because normally the job of House Speaker is very influential in the U.S. system. The House Speaker has insane levels of control, typically, on how the House works. They basically decide, essentially themselves, what committees get what bills. So a bill might be able to be sent to any one of several committees, and they get to decide which committee it goes to. They often get to decide if it goes to committee at all. They can just kind of stop legislation. They basically have power because they're the speaker for the majority, and the majority also has the majority of the committees. So they basically can prevent the committees from doing stuff. They can prevent it from advancing. So in a lot of ways, the speaker can be a very, very strong position in the U.S. system. They basically can run the show if they're a speaker, if they're a sufficiently strong speaker. But of course, McCarthy is a particularly weak speaker, not because McCarthy is weak, but because the majority is weak. It's 4 votes of 435. It's 1%. He has a 1% majority. And so, yeah, you can get Matt Gaetz to kick him out of office because all the Democrats will vote for it, because, you know, they enjoy the Schadenfreude just as much as anyone else. So you'll get the Democrats to vote for it, because even if McCarthy gets his job back immediately, which is, by the way, the most likely result, McCarthy just becomes Speaker again. So he becomes Speaker again, Matt Gaetz accomplishes nothing, and the Democrats get to make it look like a clown show. So the Democrats have every incentive to vote for it. They'll vote against McCarthy for Speaker, but then again, they voted against him the first time. So, you know, it doesn't really make any sense. So there's no one else that has the votes or anything close to it. Who wants the job, right? They would probably vote. They might vote for Jordan. They might vote for Scalise, but neither of them want the job. And they have their reasons, which are perfectly valid. They think that there's more power in some of the committees that they're part of right now, which at the moment is probably a correct political calculation. They're no fools. So they don't want the job. So no one who could possibly get the votes is a candidate, unless, you know, one of them just magically changes their mind, which why would they? Right? Why would they decide, oh, I want to be Speaker now, when they didn't want to be Speaker in January? Again, nothing has changed about the dynamics. Every reason they had to not be speaker before is still a reason not to be speaker now. So nothing has changed about the dynamics. Nothing has changed about the politics. The whole thing is dumb. It's a whole bunch of insanity. So one of two things is going to happen, is my prediction. Either McCarthy becomes speaker again, or Gates manages to somehow get Jeffries, the Democrat, elected as speaker, which is the weirdest thing that could ever happen. This would be like in a parliamentary system where the majority party elects a prime minister that's not of the majority party. This would be like they have a majority of the parliament. So it's not even a coalition government, because we don't do coalition governments in the United States, right? Because we have a two-party system. So it would be like a parliamentary system where the majority party, which has a majority of all the seats, and they elect a prime minister who's not of the majority party. In fact, is a member of the opposition. That's where we're sitting right now. That's the only other scenario. Because there's no votes for anyone on the Republican side. They can't get the votes. None of the Democrats will ever vote for any of the Republicans unless it's like a particularly weak and feeble candidate as just basically extra FU. But then again, the Republicans wouldn't vote for them if you tried to point such a candidate. So one of two things is going to happen. Either McCarthy just gets his seat immediately back, in which is the lamest vote of no confidence ever, because the guy you ousted just becomes speaker again, which is, you know, in this analogy is like being prime minister, but of course it's different. I'm just using an analogy to make it make sense to people of other governments, right? It'd be like electing the guy you just ousted to be prime minister again. Or the only other scenario that makes any sense is you peel off a half dozen Republicans who are so pissed at Matt Gaetz and so pissed at being strong-armed and so pissed at, like, you know, this gamemanship crap. You piss off like 5 or 6 Republicans who are tired of being strong-armed by, you know, this guy who's not their majority leader. You know, Matt Gaetz doesn't have the votes. He does not have the votes to be speaker. So the only other scenario is you piss off 6 members of your party so hard that they wind up voting with the minority to elect the first speaker of the House of the minority party, which is just bizarro world. Jeffries to be speaker, a Democrat speaker in a Republican House. So those are the only two scenarios I see. Scenario, some other Republican seems some distant improbability to me. Nothing has changed since January. Nothing has fundamentally changed in the politics of it that I can see. So they went through 16 rounds to elect McCarthy the first time. I guess they're going to go through 16 rounds to elect McCarthy again. Maybe get more concessions from McCarthy, I guess. But they don't believe he followed the concessions the first time. So why wouldn't he just say anything? Because he's like, well, you don't actually have any power to get me to force me. You don't actually have any power to force me because you don't have the votes. So I think there's a bet. I think, you know, if you're a betting man between McCarthy getting the seat back and Jeffries, the Democrat, getting the seat back or getting the seat, I think there's a pretty decent chance that 6 Republicans say screw this and vote with McCarthy just to really stick it to Gaetz because of how pissed they are. And of course, if that happens, the Democrats will laugh about it pretty hard because they will have just won the speakership despite having the minority. So, yeah, that's basically what's happening right now. Faith Walker Todd says, I don't think you understand how this works. I don't know. I think I understand how it works pretty well. I think I just explained how it works pretty well. I understand how it works. I get it. You need a majority of the House. You need a majority of the House to vote for speaker. Those votes can come from anywhere. So you need to be able to count to 218. That's what this is an exercise in. Can you count to 218? All right. So the Democrats have what? They have 216 votes, I think. If my memory serves correctly, I think they have 216. I think it's 216 to 218. No, it's 214 to 218. So they have 214 votes. They need 218 votes. They obviously, so if every Democrat votes the same way, they have 214 votes. They need 218. So all they need is 5 Republicans to vote for them and they win. That's how math works. And why would 5 Republicans do that? Because they're so pissed at Gaetz. They're so pissed at being strong-armed. They're so pissed at the whole show. They're like, F it. And they vote that way just to stick it to their own party. If you got 5 Republicans, particularly in particularly purple districts, right? If you got 5 Republicans from particularly purple districts, Democrat-leaning districts, the idea that a Republican might vote for the Democrat to somewhat satisfy his base in this circumstance is not exactly completely ludicrous. So I think the idea that you could peel off 5 votes from the Republicans and get them to vote for the Democrat is not a completely ridiculous idea. It's more plausible than any other Republican other than McCarthy getting the votes. Jordan doesn't want it. Scalise doesn't want it. Gaetz can't get it. There's no other candidates. We went through 16 rounds of vote. I know there's no other candidates who can get it. They weren't able to get anything close the first time, right? The best they could do is 23 votes, which is not enough. You need 200. You need 218. They weren't able to get 10% of what they needed for any other candidate. So I'm pretty sure I understand how it works. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can understand how it works. That'd be political suicide. They get primaried? Yeah, maybe. But if they're in Democrat-leaning heavy districts, I could see it happening. It still is a more plausible scenario, right? Are there 5 or 6 Republicans that are from, Democrat-heavy districts and might be able to sell the fact that, look at me, Mr. Bipartisan, and get enough Democratic votes maybe to even maintain their seats depending on their district? I mean, it's a slightly unusual scenario, but it's not unheard of. I mean, they were elected in a purple or even blue-leaning district, which occasionally happens. Occasionally you'll have, so I fight the sun over here. Occasionally you'll have someone of the other party other than the majority of the district, because who shows up to vote that day, sometimes you'll get that odd result. So are there 5 or 6 Republicans from Democrat districts or Democrat heavy districts that could sell the idea of bipartisanship? Because, when my country needed me, I decided to vote for me in the primaries. I'm a guy who's bipartisan, will get things done, and might be able actually to peel off some Democrat votes in their own district for their future election. It won't exactly do them any favors in the Republican Party, that's for sure. But the idea that they might be able to keep their seats, maybe. The fact that they might be able to fight off a primary, depending on the demographics of their district, possible. Again, it's going to be very hyper-specific, but the idea that it's at least possible in principle is not absurd. It's a big country. There are 435 districts. There's a lot of interesting dynamics out there. Gaetz doesn't want it. Gaetz can't get it anyway, so that's good. They'd be hated. They'd be hated within their own party. That's true. Their own party will hate them forever. It's not going to do them any favors in their own party. Or even worse potentially than that, even arguably worse than that, they get so pissed and they're from a Democrat heavy enough district, they switch parties. That could happen too. That occasionally happens. People do switch parties. So maybe they stay Republican and they vote for the guy, or maybe they just go all the way and they switch parties. Hey, I'm a Democrat now. The Democrats will love them because they were the people necessary to get the votes, right? And if they come from a Democrat leaning or Democrat heavy district, and they switch parties, that could happen too. So maybe you lose members of the maybe the number of Republicans in the House isn't the same at the end of the day as it is now. The idea that one of them might switch parties or some of them could switch parties is not exactly absurd either. I think I understand the dynamics reasonably well. It was just reported he'll not run for speaker again. Who, McCarthy? McCarthy won't run for speaker again? Okay. Well, I don't know what you do then. If McCarthy says he won't run again, I don't know what happens at that point. Because I don't know where the votes are in the parties. Trump for speaker? Technically speaking, that is possible. It is one of the more interesting idiosyncrasies of the US system, where the Speaker of the House doesn't have to be a representative. It's weird, but it is technically correct. And technically correct is the best kind of correct. So yes, technically speaking, they could elect Trump to be Speaker. He may not be a member of the House, but since when's that a problem? So that would be, the rough equivalent of, again, in your parliamentary system of choice, how about the new prime minister is none of the members of parliament? It's just a guy from somewhere. Yeah, that is technically possible. It could technically be me. I'm available. So yes, that is technically possible. So maybe it'll wind up being someone who isn't a member of the House because, I don't know, it's Calvin Ball. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the only one left, she won't become speaker. They'd have to be cray-cray. McCarthy's going to make an announcement that he's not going to run for speaker again. I don't know what happens next. If Trump is speaker and Joe and Camilla croak, guess who's president? That is correct. You are correct. The Speaker of the House is third in line for the presidency. So you're correct. Your presidential order of succession is president, vice president, speaker. So if Trump becomes speaker, and if both the president and vice president are unavailable, then Trump would become president again through order of succession. That is also true. Yeah. Yeah. Liz Cheney? Is Liz Cheney? I don't see that happening. Is Zelensky a speaker? Make the president of Ukraine Speaker of the U.S. House? I guess. I guess the only person it can't be would be, well, it can't be any member of the executive branch unless they resign. So, because the Constitution forbids serving in both the legislature and the executive at the same time. And I think being speaker counts as being in the legislature enough for the purposes of that analysis. Would that count against his term limits? Yes. Yeah, but ironically enough, he'd still be able to run for re-election because if Donald Trump became president now, he would be serving less than 2 years of Joe Biden's term. And so he would still be available to be reelected to another 4-year term. The total number of years a person can be president is 10. So if Trump somehow magically became president today, he could still run for reelection because rules. And he would be the first president since FDR to serve more than 8 years in office. Just as long as you're looking forward to bizarro world scenarios. Can senators be Speaker of the House? I don't know. I guess. I would think that they have other. I think they're kind of busy, being members of the Senate. But I guess strictly speaking, there's nothing in the rules that prevents it. But that seems odd. Yeah. Yeah. So if McCarthy isn't going to run again, I guess Jim Jordan, they're going to beat the guy to death. They're going to beat the guy to death and make him take speaker. Scalise recently has had serious health problems, incidentally. If Jim Jordan wanted it, he could probably get it. He's congressman from Ohio's 4th district, but Jim Jordan has previously expressed he don't want. Jim Jordan could get it if he wants it, but he said he doesn't want it. They tried to put pressure on him to take the seat back in January, and they're not getting any seats now. Thank you very much, Bry K, for the super chat. It's appreciated. Vote will take place Thursday. Yeah, so I suppose in the interim, that means that if both the president and vice president become unavailable, who is president pro temp of the Senate right now? Pro tem. Patty Murray. Who the hell is Patty Murray? She is a senator from Washington. So the Speaker of the House being vacant, in the events that neither the president nor vice president can serve, Patty Murray will be your new president. Senator from Washington. How exciting. Yeah. How exciting. Is all business stopped in the House? Yeah. I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes. I believe the rules require there to be a speaker. So all business will be suspended while they go fight about who the speaker is going to be. How can they schedule a vote for Thursday? If the vote is for speaker, they can schedule it. McCarthy will not run for speaker again. Wow. House Speaker McCarthy is expected to tell House Republicans he will not run for speaker again. Oof. That's fun. Why is a Democrat pro temp? Because the Democrats control the Senate. The Republicans control the House and the Democrats control the Senate. That's why. The Democrats have a majority in the Senate. That would be why. What's the most ridiculous outcome that has a possible chance of happening? Jim Jeffries becoming speaker is the most ridiculous, plausible thing to occur. The Democrat leader becoming the speaker is the most ridiculous, plausible thing that can occur. And after that, I don't know. I don't know what the most plausible thing is now. I don't honestly know. It doesn't make much sense. Patrick McHenry is Speaker pro temp. I don't even know what that means. Oh, named interim speaker. All right. Well, all right, fine. I don't really know what that means practically, but sure, we have an interim speaker, whatever that means. Nancy back in as speaker. There you go. Now you're thinking. What's George W. Bush doing these days? Is he available? Do I think it's possible Democrats might support a moderate Republican? The only thing I could see the Democrats doing would be supporting a really weak Republican. The only way I can see they would be voting as a caucus, right? They're not going to vote. You're not going to peel off Democrats, probably. That's very unlikely. So the only way to do it is like they're all in. And I see the only way that they're happening is basically if you pick a complete idiot and a loon. Someone who's completely ineffective to just grind the House to a halt. Which, by the way, if you're looking for someone completely ineffective, I'm also available. I can do that. I've never been in the House before, so I probably wouldn't be the best speaker. So, if you want not much to happen, I'm probably a really good choice for speaker. I'm also old enough to be president. I'm naturally born. So if you elect me speaker, then I'll be president. Uncivil for president, the hard way. Gates? Does Gates fit that? Yeah, maybe. I don't know that he's dumb enough for the Republicans. I don't know who they'd have to pick. They'd have to pick someone like who's a complete unknown, who has no ambition, who is like basically tripping over themselves. And yeah. I am available. I'm available for speaker. If the Republicans want me, I'm a Republican. I can be speaker. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's okay. Apparently that's part of the job description right now. Jordan saying he may consider running for speaker. If Jordan throws his hat in the ring, Jordan might very well be speaker. Yeah. I think that's what everyone, I think that's the saving grace for the Republicans. If Jim Jordan of Ohio runs for it, he'll win. He'll win. He can get the votes. So if he changes his mind and says he wants to be speaker with McCarthy out, Jim Jordan can win. Where's Paul Ryan? What's he doing? Let's get Paul Ryan in here. Is there statutory protection for the line of succession? Yeah, it's statutory. It's the Presidential Succession Act. Or can someone be chosen speaker as president, vice president resign, then completing the term? Well, anytime you serve as president would count against your your 10 years limit. So you can only be president for 10 years. So anytime you served as president would count against your limit. So George W. Bush could be president for 2 more years. Bill Clinton could be president for 2 more years. Right? So in the unlikely event that George W. Bush became speaker and somehow became president, that would be fine. It's just that now he's on a 2-year clock. Because he's already served 8 years. And being less than 2 years in Biden's term, he would just fill out the term. So that's how that would work. Josh Hawley, maybe. Newt, I liked Newt. I met him once in person in DC at an event. He was very cordial to me for the limited time we spoke. Can a Supreme Court justice be speaker? Technically, I believe the prohibition for working in 2 branch only applies to members of the House, only applies to the executive and legislative. I think technically a judge could be speaker. Although once again, the judge has other things to do. Although it would arguably violate judicial canons of ethics. But then again, the Supreme Court isn't bound by the judicial canons of ethics. So Justice Thomas for Speaker? Yeah. Carter's a little old. Carter's like 97. But he's probably more with it than Biden, which is sad on a whole lot of levels. Carter is definitely not in his best years at this point, but I'm deeply surprised that this vote was put forward, and I'm also surprised to some degree it passed. Because the Republicans have a plan? Do they look like a kind of guy with a plan? Was that guy who was speaker for about 5 seconds? What was his name? Let's see. It's been who was speaker for like all of about like a week. What was his name? What was his name? Bob Livingston. Bob Livingston. Oh yeah, I don't think he ever actually became speaker, but he was like on the cusp of becoming speaker before he was forced out by a sex scandal. Bob Livingston. Let's get Bob Livingston to be speaker. Yeah. He's 80. Let's get him. He was chosen as Newt Gingrich's successor, and he would have gotten the votes, but he decided not to get it. So let's get Bob Livingston to be speaker. That'd be good. Or what's her name? From who was that prime minister in UK? The Elizabeth, Liz Truss, was that her name? Let's get her. I hear she's good. Let's get John Barco. He's good. I liked him as speaker. Order. Let's get John Barco. The one that didn't outlast the lettuce? Yeah, that's right. Let's get Liz Truss. She's good. Let's get her. Yeah, she's good. Let's get her. If Trump becomes speaker, would all the court cases be suspended? Not by operation of law, no. But it would be hilarious. Trump as speaker. I'm going to be the best speaker. There's never going to be another speaker like me. Wow. Boris Johnson. I kind of liked Boris Johnson. I was disappointed when Boris Johnson gave up his U.S. citizenship. Boris Johnson was born in New York. He was an American. He could have been our president. I was sad when he renounced his U.S. citizenship. It hurt my heart a little. Boris Johnson, American. Ken Paxton for speaker. I think Ken Paxton has the job he wants right now, to be honest. Alex Jones for speaker. And there you go. That would be different. That would be very, very different for sure. Could he regain his citizenship and run? Yes, I think he can. Because I think, although I'm not sure, it's like if he did re-immigrate into the United States and got his citizenship back, is he still a natural born citizen or not? That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good legal question. So having been a natural born citizen but renounced your citizenship, if he re-immigrates, is he a natural born citizen again? I don't know. That's a great legal case. I'll have to get back to you. If Trump is speaker and then became president, what would happen to all state prosecutions? I think they would all be put on pause because it would unduly interfere with the federal function. So if Trump becomes president while the cases are pending, if the cases against him, not the cases against his businesses, but the cases against him, I think they would all be put on pause. I mean, they certainly couldn't put him in prison while he was president because that would unduly interfere with the federal function. Like, so even if the cases went forward and even if he was convicted, they couldn't arrest him and put him in prison because the federal government would be like, well, he's president, and him being in prison unduly interferes with the federal function. So he would have to be, his prison stay would have to be held in abeyance because it's the only thing that makes sense. Maybe they're playing 5D Space. I don't know. You can't renounce, then try and gain your citizenship back? I think you can. I don't know if there's any rule that prohibits it, unless you know something about U.S. citizenship law that I don't know. I don't know that having renounced your citizenship, you can't try to become a citizen again. I mean, you'd have to go through the same process as any immigrant, but I don't know if there's anything that categorically prohibits it once you've renounced from becoming a citizen again. But maybe you're right. I'm just not aware of any law that prohibits it. Let's find out. Can you renounce your citizenship and reapply for citizenship? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that categorically prohibits a renounced U.S. citizen from becoming a citizen again. Oh, irrevocability of renunciation. Finally, those contemplating renunciation of U.S. citizenship should understand it's irrevocable, except as provided by Section 351 of the INA, and cannot be set aside, canceled or set aside, absent successful administrative review or appeal. Section 351B of the INA provides an applicant who renounced his or her citizenship before 18 can have the citizenship reinstated if he makes the desire of the state known within 6 months of having obtained 18. So I think you might be right. I think maybe you're right. Maybe you can't gain your citizenship back once you renounce it. Let's see. Restrictions on loss of nationality. So this is 8 USC 1483 for those of you who want to play along at home. Except as provided by 5 and 6 of Section 1481 of this title, no national of the United States can lose United States nationality under this chapter while within the United States or any of its possessions. That is the wrong section. So you can't lose citizenship while you're within the borders of the United States. And then it says there's a special provision for how if you're under the age of 18 when you renounce, you can unrenounce within 6 months. But I don't see where it says you're categorically banned. You can't revoke the renunciation. But there's a difference between being able to revoke the renunciation and reapplying for citizenship, right? So you can't revoke the renunciation if you did it voluntarily, knowingly, intelligently, and all the rest of it. But I don't know, having once renounced, that you can't reapply for citizenship. That was what I was looking for. McCarthy press conference applying. I think it says you can't reverse it. You can't reverse it. But there's a difference, at least to my mind, between reversing the renunciation and applying for citizenship. Those are distinct ideas in my mind. Right. And to show you why, just imagine that you were never a citizen in the first place, right? If you were never a citizen, you were just born overseas and you weren't a citizen in the first place. Can you apply to be a citizen? Sure. Can you renounce your non-citizenship? Well, no. I mean, you can't. You weren't. Yeah. So there's a distinction, it seems to me. Let's see what's going on here with this hearing, or this things. Yeah. So I think you can become citizen by just going through the process again of becoming a citizen, which sounds really annoying and inefficient, but I don't think it's prohibited. So if there's some law that specifically prohibits it, I'd love to know. But I don't think the fact you can't renounce is not quite the same thing.
I believe I can continue to fight.
All right, let's see what's going on here. So I think those are just distinct things, is what I think. But who knows? I could be wrong. All right, so let's make this a little bigger so we can watch this together and see what Mr. McCarthy has to say on the subject. Maybe he has an answer as to whether or not you can renounce your citizenship and then get it back or not. All right, let's watch this thing.
I grew up in a town of Bakersfield, California, the son of a firefighter, the grandson of immigrants. Parents worked hard, the youngest in my family. Didn't have great wealth, and got out of high school, I didn't have great grades. Couldn't get a scholarship, went to community college. Flipped cars to try to pay my way through it. Went to visit some buddies away in college for a weekend, stopped at the grocery store to cash a check, and I won the lottery. One of the first in California. It was before Biden economics. It was only 5,000, but it went much further back then. Took my folks to dinner, put the majority of the rest of the money into the stock market and did pretty well. The next semester, I took a break from school. I went to buy a franchise, but no one said they would sell me one because I was only 20 years old. But I learned then never to give up. So I opened my own business, selling sandwiches. 3 things I learned. First to work, last to leave, last to be paid. I wanted to finish my college degree. At that time, no one in my family had finished a 4-year degree. I did pretty well. I now had enough money that I could pay my way through school as long as I went to Cal State. So I sold my business, going to school. I opened up the local paper and said, be a summer intern in Washington, D.C. with my local congressman. I did not know this man, but I thought he'd be lucky to have me, so I applied. And you know what he did? He turned me down. But you want to know the end of the story? I got elected to a seat I couldn't get an internship for. I ended up being the 55th Speaker of the House. One of the greatest honors. I loved every minute. And the one thing I will tell you is, doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governance over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people. I leave the speakership with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and yes, optimism. From the day I entered politics, my mission has always been to make tomorrow better than today. I fought for what I believe in, and I believe in this country of America. My goals have not changed. My ability to fight is just in a different form. You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else. I hope you realize that every day I did the job, regardless whether you underestimated me or not, I wanted to do it with a smile. I grew to enjoy you, even on your toughest days and your questions. I could always tell what day it was based upon your question. Monday, you would ask if I could pass the bill. Tuesday was whether the rule would pass. Wednesday was the greatest challenge ever to my speakership. And Thursday, when we passed the bill, you didn't think it was a very big deal. And it all started again on Friday. You know, I wouldn't change a thing. I do believe, I got a new portrait in there too of Teddy Roosevelt. You all know the man in the arena. One of my favorite parts of it, who errs, who comes up short again and again, but there is no effort without error and shortcoming. Who spends himself in a worthy cause, who knows the triumph of high achievement, and if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. I always like to take a risk. Saturday, I took a risk for the American public. Regardless what anybody says, no one knew whether that would pass. The Democrats didn't want that bill. Yes, they pull a fire alarm. Yes, they do their conga line. Yes, they wanted to delay.
I missed the conga line.
It was all for the American people.
I missed that memo.
I could not look the troops in the eye and say I would not pay them. For those who spoke on the floor, I thank them for their positive talks. I don't know what those who voted against and said there was some deal, they were never a part of any deal. For those who said about what we accomplished, I'm proud of what we accomplished. From the Parents' Bill of Rights to our energy bill. But if they want to hold me liable because the Senate didn't take it up or the President didn't take it up, that's politics for what I know. But the one thing I do know, this country is too great for small visions of those 8. To any child that are listening and who are coming to visit the Capitol, this is a place I want you to visit. I liked opening the Capitol back up again. I liked taking away the metal detectors. I liked committees being able to work. I liked people being able to visit. I hope you liked being able to be back in. I think it was important that members actually show up to work as well. You know, to paraphrase Lou Gehrig, he said, I might have been given a bad break, but I truly still consider myself to be the luckiest man on the face of the earth. There's no other country that you could rise to be the 55th Speaker, not get an internship, and be able to fight for the American public. So it was my greatest honor to be able to do it. I loved my conference well. I loved the ability. I've been a part of the leadership team for quite some time. We won 2 majorities. As leader, I'm proud of the fact we only gained races, only gained seats. I'm proud of the fact as a Republican leader, we elected more women. We elected more minorities. We expanded the base. I'm proud of the fact that for the 5 years I was leader, 2 election cycles, we gained 5 more seats in California, 5 more in New York. We won in places no one thought we could win. The same thing, you would underestimate me. You always said we'd lose each time around. We kept gaining. I intend to make sure that we gain and keep the majority in the next cycle as well. With that, I look forward to your positive questions. Yes.
Will you win Congress?
Oh, I'll look at that.
You still obviously command a lot of loyalty within the conference. We've heard you say approximately 10,000 times that you never give up. So I'm wondering, why not? Why did you make the decision not to put your name forward again and try to grind it out like you did when you won the job in the first place?
You know, you need 218 for the rule, 218 to move forward. And I'll never give up on the American people. That doesn't mean I have to be Speaker to do what I have to do for the American people. There's a lot of things I could do for the American people. But you know what's interesting? Everybody's sitting there. In today's world, if you're sitting in Congress and you took a gamble to make sure government was still open, and 8 people can throw you out as Speaker, and the Democrats who said they wanted to keep government open, I think you've got a real divide. I think you've got a real institutional problem. Interesting, it was in this room after we had won the majority, I hadn't become Speaker last, and Nancy Pelosi came to me. She was Speaker at the time on the way out. And I told her I was having issues with getting enough votes. And she said, what's the problem? I said, they want this one person can rule you out. She was the only Speaker to have changed that rule. I had the power to call the vote on her, but I never would. I lost some votes because of it. And she said, just give it to him. I'll always back you up. I made the same offer to Boehner and same thing to Paul, because I believe in the institution. I think today was a political decision by the Democrats. And I think the things they have done in the past hurt the institution. When they just started removing people from committee. And they just started doing the other things. And my fear is the institution fell today. Because you can't do the job if 8 people, you have 94% or 96% of your entire conference, but 8 people can partner with the whole other side. How do you govern?
That's how numbers work.
Me because I made a decision for the country that they agreed with, but they choose to do the other. That becomes a problem. Yes, sir.
So, one, are you planning on endorsing a successor to you? And then
I might. I might.
You might.
Yeah.
Who would that be?
I don't know who's running yet.
Okay.
I'll talk to people.
And when you look back, is there anything you could have done differently to with those 8 members?
Yeah, a lot of them I helped get elected, so I probably should have picked somebody else.
What about Democrats?
What if the 200 don't give up on you? I see Jim Bates here. There's others that really, really support you.
You know,
If you're nominated again, if you keep getting nominated, will you stay?
You know, I love these 200. They've gone through so much. They're down in the conference. They want me to. They'll say they're going to keep voting for me. I think you should put the country first. You know, this job was never about me. I hope you felt that I always felt, what can we do best to move forward? I mean, I treated Hakeem the way I wanted to be treated. I'd tell him things we were doing throughout, so he never was questioned. I wanted to bring the body back differently. We created a select committee on China. I changed the Intel committee. They just came back from MIT where they all had bipartisan briefing on AI and quantum. Started doing briefings with AI the whole conference of Republicans and Democrats alike. We're far from solving that problem, but I'm proud of what we were able to do there. So we'll continue. Yes, sir.
When did you make this decision? Did you know the most eventually succeeded that you would not run again, or was this right afterwards?
You know, not all those 8, but these are the same people that never voted for me. They thought it was big. They went to present after we went through 15 rounds. Why do I do something for myself that can hurt the country? Why create? I'm not quite sure those individuals are looking to be productive. It concerns me as a Republican based upon watching what they do. I want to be a Republican and a conservative that governs. And we're going to have to find our way to do that. The challenge is we had so many opportunities. These are the same people that sat on the floor and criticized me that we didn't get all 12 spending bills done, but we first had to do a debt ceiling that they didn't support. They held up every appropriation bill in the summer because they wouldn't let it come through. After the debt ceiling, they stopped us from doing anything on the floor. When we had a continuing resolution that would do something on the border, I listened to one talk about how it made him think about the border and when he voted against it. And then they wanted to challenge me because I worked with the other side so America could go forward and government could stay open. You know, if you have to lose for something, I will always lose for the country. It is a much better battle to have.
Mr. McCarthy, yes,
sir.
Mr. McCarthy.
Doing this job, what advice do you have for the next speaker? What would you like to see the next speaker?
Change the rules.
Do you regret allowing people to be in place?
Do you think I let it? I mean, for the whole point, I mean, if you talk about like a Gates, the Gates came to the whole conference and said, we will never use this. We'll never use this, you know. I mean, this is a man that sat there on the 14th vote and said, okay, I'm going to vote for you next time, and falls back and not. So, I mean, it's just the trustworthiness of a lot of individuals. It makes it difficult. But I do not think, regardless of who the speaker is, that you should have that rule. You know, everybody had it but Pelosi, but it was never used until it started getting used against Boehner. And if the entire other, if you can always count on the other party to vote in a block against it, then you're allowing 4 to 5 people to control whatever. So it doesn't matter even if you have 96%. So that is not a government that works. That is chaotic.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah.
Is there a Republican Party on
Okay, wait, go right ahead.
I hear you talking about the challenge of governing, challenging Republicans. I'm wondering what you think this means, what this says about the Republican Party.
I don't think it says about the Republican Party. I think it says something about some people who are not a conservative. I mean, if you were a conservative and you only had one entity making the battle and you vote against securing the border, you vote against cutting this wasteful spending, and then you partner with all the Democrats. Now you'll phrase it all the other different ways. That's not a conservative. Look, you all know Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, sorry.
You know it was personal. It had nothing to do about spending. It had nothing to do about everything he accused somebody of he was doing. It all was about getting attention from you. I mean, we're getting email fundraisers from him as he's doing it. Join in quickly. That's not governing. That's not becoming a member of Congress. And regardless of what you think, I've seen the text. It was all about his ethics. But that's all right.
Mr. McCarthy, can I just clarify really quickly from the first question? Are you considering resigning?
No, I said, he asked about that. I haven't thought about that.
You
I
haven't
said,
thought about it.
yeah.
And then just on where you're placing the blame, you said the institution is...
Look. No. I'm not going to blame anybody. There's not blame anywhere. Look, I give it as good as I get it, right? So it's you know
This is
the challenge.
incredibly
I knew
insightful.
Going in, you would take a poll all the time. Is he going to get thrown out this week? But you know what? If I lose my job over doing what I truly believe was right, I'm very at peace with it. You asked earlier, like, when did I decide? I knew they would make the motion on me. It didn't make one bit of difference. I felt very comfortable in that decision. And I think the American public believed that decision was right.
McCarthy should be expelled from the Republican conference?
That's the conference's decision.
McCarthy, now, you mentioned that you're looking to maybe help skill in another way. Would you consider having another position somewhere in Congress, whether it's leadership or the chairmanship? Can you talk about that?
No. There's a lot of great people in conference. There's always other people to do jobs. It is amazing the talent that we have. And the one thing I've always hoped as Speaker, that we lifted more of that talent up. I look at people doing a lot of different jobs and the different opportunities we did, and they're doing an exceptional job. We have so much talent. It is remarkable.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you have so much talent?
This kind of
Do you?
a little bit preordained from the beginning. Obviously, it was a much more narrow majority than what you anticipated, what Republicans considered. 15 rounds, the longest speaker's race since 1859. And then
I made history, didn't I?
It was well, we did do that, yeah. But was that kind of always thought that it was inevitably going to go this because of the narrow majority and because the writing might have been on the wall?
Well, would any of you think, if it took that long and you had a one person, you knew it was always a possibility, so that was fine. Didn't bother me, didn't change any of my decision I made. But it was interesting. I read a tweet the other day of Matt Rosendale. He goes to Mass every day. But you know what he said his prayer was all last year? That Republicans didn't have a big victory, that they had a narrow victory. When you have members like that are part of your team, you got a tough team. You know, look, when I was in business, I got to hire and fire who worked with me. Somebody else hires them, somebody else fires them. My job was to inspire them. I think we did some good work, and I think we'll continue to do great work. Yes, sir.
Can you reflect back on 2010 when you guys were the young guys, right? You, Paul Ryan,
Eric Cantor, yeah.
Now all three of you guys have been essentially.
Well, we're not that young anymore.
Well, with all three of you have been pushed out by so-called more conservative members. How do you
No, let's be fair, and it's wrong that you ever say. They are not conservatives. They voted against, one, the greatest cut in history that Congress has ever voted for, $2 trillion. They voted against work requirements. They voted against NEPA reform. They voted against border security. They voted against... They don't get to say they're conservative because they're angry and they're chaotic. That's not the party I belong to. The party of Reagan was if you believed in your principles that you could govern in a conservative way. They are not conservatives, and they do not have
I need
the
a
right
drink
to have
now.
a title. Yes.
You worried that Donald Trump will turn your party in this direction that makes it difficult to govern, that makes it difficult to get conservative votes?
Why do you say that? Because your question doesn't hold true to history. When Donald Trump was president, we did tax reform. You can look at all of our different successes. So, I mean, you may dislike the policy, but we've been very successful. You watched the Abraham Accords. I mean, you can go victory after victory. The price of gas, we were energy independent at the time. We had more businesses growing at the time. We didn't have to evacuate our embassies. You know, it's easy on its merit to see the difference of what Biden has destroyed America to what the policies we were able to create. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you, what about your conversation with Keenan Jeffries? What did he ask from you? What were you asking from him?
No, we didn't ask for anything.
You didn't ask for anything at all? You didn't ask any impeachment inquiry or anything like that?
No. And you know, I have a lot of respect for Hakeem. He wants to win the majority. I heard what they said in conference, you know. Why would they vote for me if I've won every time as leader? I raised 70% of all the money. It's an opportunity for them. The real question to the 8, why would you enable and allow the Democrats to do it? That's the question, yes.
Do you regret making concessions
What concessions did I make?
You could have leaned towards Democrats to give them possibility.
To what?
To secure resources.
Thank you, Rogue Accountant.
Look, I'm not going to, no. I'm a Republican. I win by Republicans and I lose by Republicans. It's not that way. And so.
Rogue Accountant helping support the alcohol fund.
You should work across
Very
the aisle.
appreciated. Thank you.
Do I want to make the bill the most conservative possible? Yes, that's the goal. It's difficult when you can't get 218 for the conservative bill. And then they want to challenge you when you went and solved and kept the government open. Yes, sir.
The last few months, you've been a firewall against the debt ceiling crisis, government shutting down.
We did pretty well, didn't we?
How big of a risk do you think a shutdown is in November without you as speaker?
Oh, other people can do the job. You know, it's interesting. I've never received so many texts from so many senators about how big a play we just did the other day, or how many congratulations about the debt ceiling and the other. I mean, if I would go back to the days before the debt ceiling, none of you even thought I'd get a meeting with the president. All of you'd ask me, is it going to fall off the cliff? End of the day, we worked an agreement out. Some of those people got mad about it, but 2/3, the highest number of Republicans ever voted for a debt ceiling when you had it. And you only negotiated based upon the deal we went. That was the moment they wanted to go after, and that's what they continue to follow through.
I've got some Simply Spiked in the fridge that's sounding very tempting right now. Hold on.
You should.
Talk amongst yourselves.
It's designed that you have to have compromise. No, you can't get everything that you want. You know, you got a House, you got a Senate, but you had more to the question.
Well, my point was, my question was just going to be that some of the criticism leveled at you today by both Democrats and by Republicans is that perhaps you've been too transactional.
In which way?
Part about keeping your word.
In which word did I not keep? Name one thing I did not keep.
Gates says that there's several things you didn't keep
From
from January.
no, tell me. What did Gates say? What did I not keep in Gates' mind? Because Gates had never been a part of a discussion. Just because Gates said something, don't believe it's true. I haven't heard him say one true thing yet.
Democrats say you reneged
On what?
the ceiling bill.
On what?
On the debt ceiling.
That is not true. So no. If you're going to ask the question, you're going to say it. Tell me how I did something different on the debt ceiling bill. Any of you. Tell me what I did different on the debt ceiling, that I didn't keep my word.
You said it was a floor, you said it was a ceiling.
Is it not a ceiling? Okay, this is the Okay, no. When you agree to spending levels, that's the
You got this
maximum amount you can
strawberry
spend.
lemonade
This
here.
is what is wrong with Washington.
Simply
because
Spiked.
it's the height that you can spend, you can also spend less. We're a different body. So does any of you believe then the Senate broke their word on the debt ceiling? Because they spent more than the limit. But somehow I'm wrong because I want to save the taxpayers more money. We're our own body. I have 2 children. If I give them each $100 for dinner and one spends 100 and one spends 80, am I going to yell at the one who spent 80 and said, oh my God, you got to spend it all? It's not our money. And why am I getting criticized because I'm fighting for the American people that we can eliminate waste? And you know what? We're our own body. So if we can pass the bills, and the Senate can pass the bills, but they pass them higher, but they haven't passed anything, somehow I'm wrong. I kept my word. I did not spend over the limit. They broke their word.
You don't feel you're too transactional, though.
Okay, you used the word, how was I transactional? If you ask a question, I want you to show an example. Give me an example.
The definition is basically this for that.
So what did I do this for that?
Well, on the Ukraine, on the CR, we've been talking about leaving in, leaving out, and then finally put it out.
No, you're making no sense. What transactional did it? No, I did no transactional. I tried to pass a conservative stopgap measure that secured the border and actually cut spending. When that didn't go, the only bill that was going was sitting over in the Senate that had a stopgap measure, disaster, and Ukraine. I made a decision as Speaker to keep the government open, and I put something on the floor. And let me get this straight to all of you. Because someone said I did wrong. 72-hour rule, I'm the only one who's lived by it. We're the ones who created it. We never broke the 72-hour rule. The bill I put on the floor was a suspension, which takes a 2/3 vote. And you know what? You can put a suspension on a rule, and you can waive it based upon the leadership. That's exactly what I followed. So my question to you is, when somebody says something, don't take it that it's gospel. Why don't you ask them to point? When Gates said I didn't follow, said, show me one place. You saw Massey, Thomas Massey, who is the hardest line person, say we followed all the rules all the time. That he was in the room when the agreement was made, and then we surpassed what we said we would do. So if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer back, because when it's not true, it's not fair.
How important is it that the Speaker of the House be a member of the institution? Some members are floating from former President Trump.
They always float some of the names. Yes, you had. Okay. First of all, you got to be in the institution to understand how it works. And look, it's legal to have somebody else. I just do not think that would ever be good. Do I regret? You start with this question. I don't think you've ever been positive on yet, but come on. I have high hope. This is going to be exciting.
You're rubbing on, puppy.
That's a good thing.
I actually don't think you're out yet. But do you regret not reaching out personally to people like Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, who sat down on the House steps today and told us orders that you said something condescending to him?
Okay, let's get through this. I personally like Tim Burchett, and I called Tim Burchett because I read his quote. And Tim Burchett's a friend of mine, which I'm kind of shocked by this. And Tim Burchett, in his quote, said he's leaning towards no, he's on CNN, but I'm going to pray about it. So I pick up the phone and call him, because I didn't think he was already there. I said, Tim, I read your quote. You said you're going to pray about it. I wanted to talk to you about it. And somehow he construes that I'm a Christian. I'm not going to offend somebody. I simply read his quote back. I thought there was still an opening, and I wanted to talk to him about it. He never mentioned anything when we were communicating like that. And he said, Nancy Mace is a whole nother story. Okay? Let's just be honest here. This is the one that I just got a text from her primary opponent saying, "Why'd you spend $3 million?" But I called Nancy Mace's chief of staff yesterday, and because I called the chief of staff.
She wanted you to call her personally.
Well, she was on The View saying I didn't keep my word, so I didn't know what to... Listen, I can't say this in the press, but okay. But so, no, you keep it among yourselves, right? Wait till my book. No. So I call her chief of staff because, I don't know, maybe I don't connect her with something else, but I just said to him, I said, can you please tell me, I don't understand, where have I not kept my word? You know what her chief of staff said? You have kept your word, 100%. Members come to me, and one thing, I don't like the idea that a member comes and tries to leverage me. I don't go for that. You know, I'll vote for the bill you do. That's not well. But if you have a problem with the bill, I want to help you. But I can't sit there and write your entire bill and work it all the way through committee. We just got our one bill out. And it came back, the other bill doing on guns, it just wasn't working. Do you want to do something else? We did something else. I just don't appreciate. Look, I bite my lip. I let people say things that are not true, but it's not right. It is not right. Her chief of staff told all of us we have kept every single one of our words. And he said he's told her that too. Now, if somehow he gets fired, I'll still give him a job.
Last question.
Yes. Wait, I'm being too honest now?
Your argument about the health of the institution might have resonated with more Democrats, if not for your response to January 6th. Do you regret it?
Oh, my God. No, but do I regret the Democrats playing games with January 6th? Yes. They played so many politics. What they did to this institution and what they did to this building was so wrong. The idea that they put magnetometers there, the idea that they would go to any Republican member that they had been co-sponsors of bills and they no longer could be a co-sponsor, that they would fine members $5,000 if the magnetometers went on, but when Nancy went around it or Clyburn was supposed to get a fine, it all got waived. The idea that bills didn't have to go through committee, the idea is they created a select committee on January 6th and they wouldn't let the minority appoint who to do it. Look, I'm trying to change all that and bring the body back to they can work together. But I think they did a lot of damage to us. Yes, sir.
The House is trying to pass the appropriation bills one by one. What are your expectations for that process now that you're not?
Well, that's always been my goal. You know, I just talked to Mitch yesterday, and I had to call in to Schumer, and I talked to Hakeem last night. What I was going to do is, because we had taken 5 up, we passed 4 of them. I was going to start individually pre-conferencing so we can get this work done. I'm concerned with the timeline now. Look, I truly believe at the end of the day we can get this all worked out. I do believe at the end of the day we could find common ground and do something about the border. I don't know if this has caused problems. Look, I was doing Squawk today, and they had the other TV on, MSNBC. The first time I saw MSNBC running a whole story about the border with people just walking across. You know, Pritzker sent a letter yesterday about the immigration. Massachusetts governor, state of emergency. Connecticut. Everybody is becoming the number 1. They cannot ignore it. And I had told my members all before.
We skipped a story today during Legal News Roundup because, you know, Uncivil wasn't having a great morning. But one of the stories I had pre-queued was a story from New York City in which Bill Clinton was saying they needed to amend the law
a stopgap measure
because New York passed this law dealing with right to housing.
To Hawaii,
saying, well, every person has a fundamental right to housing, and New York will provide housing for everyone.
That's a dirty word.
And suddenly all these illegal immigrants are showing up and they can't find housing for everyone. And Bill Clinton was like, oh, we need to amend the law.
Jackson Color.
This was meant for the homeless. It isn't meant for these immigrants. Where are they coming from?
Have you guys met my mom yet? My mom's fat.
It was a
Italian.
Nice little moment in hypocrisy there.
She calls me the other day. She said, oh, she gets worried. She reads what you guys write. And she says, I'm so nervous. I said, why, Mom?
Yeah, we're a sanctuary city. Everyone's welcome here.
She went in the house and she
Wait a second. Why are all these people coming? Oh, my God, we have to pay for it.
Once a week at Costco on Wednesdays, then calls me because the price.
Thank you, Alabama Rose, for the super chats, gift memberships. They're appreciated. Thank you.
But look, I think this job is always harder on your loved ones than you yourself. So they'll be okay.
Did you make a side deal with the White House on Ukraine?
No.
Unequivocally,
no. Unequivocally, no. Oh well, if you want to categorize this, let me see, because people think some big side deal. I did tell when we were doing the stopgap measure, there was a concern in there. Does it have transferability on money? I believed, and my staff believed it did. But what I did say to the White House, if it does not, if you think some way it doesn't do it the way you would, I will fix that. I did say that, and I did say I do it. Look, I support arming Ukraine. That doesn't mean sending them cash, but arming Ukraine. But I have been on the White House even before they sent this supplemental. I said, you guys are doing it all wrong by just sending us a supplemental. And I think the president is failing here because he's not telling the American public what is the mission. Now, we have a lot of members who are Navy SEALs who've been in theater and F-18 pilots, and they're frustrated. They want to support, but they don't want to support an ever-ending war. They want to see what's going on here. And I've really been on the White House. You've got to come down and talk to them about it, but you should listen to them and the prospects. I'm really concerned, though, long-term. What's happening around looks a lot like the 1930s. A lot of actions that Putin takes is very similar to Hitler. If you are history,
did you just Godwin this thing?
Hitler served in the World War I army.
You can't Godwin this thing.
That his country collapsed, and they signed the Treaty of Versailles. And what did he do? He ran and created a new party and ran in democracy, again and again and again until he won. And when he won, what did he do? He took the freedoms away. And then he rebuilt his military, and even though it went against the Treaty of Versailles, the world powers said nothing. And then what did he do? He took part of Czechoslovakia. He took Austria. And then he told the entire world he's going to take the rest of it on a given day. So now the world power could not sit back, so in come Neville Chamberlain. But what did happen?
Why are we doing history of World War II right now?
Because he was equal now to the world power, but he saw weakness. Neville Chamberlain made him sign a piece of paper and told us peace for our time. And then he invaded Poland the next year, and World War II began. If you study Putin, Putin didn't serve in the Soviet Union Army, but he served in the KGB. He hated that his country collapsed to the West. He hated it so much, when Gorbachev died, he still didn't attend the funeral. What did he do? He rebuilt his military. But he learned something. A military makes you strong, but dependency makes you weak. He rebuilt it by selling his natural gas to Europe. But when his pipeline that went through Ukraine, when they changed power, he didn't want to pay. So he proposed a new pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Everybody loved it. America at least sanctioned it. Merkel said, great. But what did he do when he rebuilt his military? Invaded Georgia, took part of the Donbass, took Crimea. And the world powers really didn't say much. But then when he parked 100,000 troops on the border of Ukraine, and after he watched Afghanistan collapse, that's going to give us challenges for the next 2 decades. He got his meeting with the world power. So in comes Biden. And what does Biden do? He lifts the sanctions off Nord Stream 2, but asks nothing for it. Putin misreads that and invades Ukraine, thinking it would collapse in 2 weeks based upon Afghanistan. But now we have something even worse that's happened in the 1930s. Before Hitler moved, he created an axis of power, right? With Italy and Japan, all countries who wanted to expand their sphere of influence. Before Putin invaded Afghanistan, what did he do? Create an axis of power with China, North Korea, and Iran. All countries who want to expand their sphere of influence. So what we do here is very important. We can't sit there and just collapse it, because it'll look from Afghanistan. We can't just throw money at it. If we provide the weapons to be successful, but why it's so much personal to me, in 2014 or 2015, when Putin invaded.
I'd like to take note for the record that it was you guys in chat who suggested this stream and suggested watching this with McCarthy. So we're here because this is your fault.
And we advocated, let's sell them javelins so they can stop tanks. So they wouldn't invade. He said no. He said Europeans wouldn't want it. I said, well, why don't we sell them to them now and keep them in Poland then? Didn't think that was right. And I fear of making the same mistake twice and sending the wrong messages. But the thing I would tell everybody is, more Americans are dying on the side.
I'm not sure Putin is Hitler is exactly the right message.
Each and every day, a plane of Americans crash from fentanyl. And I don't understand how the White House continues to ignore it. My whole plan, and
we went from Hitler to fentanyl?
Beginning, what I would say, if you want anything on Ukraine, we got to do something with the border.
Mr. President, you mentioned earlier you regret.
Are we doing it till they drop?
I was joking. They're all right.
Is that what we're doing now?
Supporting primary challenges.
This guy's going to stop talking until there's no more questions, is there?
When I was running for,
we're doing it till they drop, aren't we?
Primaries.
Oh my God! Buckle in, kids. We could be here a while.
I think I'm pretty good at electing people.
Mr. President, when was the last time you spoke to President Biden, and do you expect to now?
You know, I was thinking about that. It's been a long, long time. I couldn't remember when I spoke to him last. You know, I've worked with a couple different presidents. I would have thought, we had built some respect for one another going through the debt ceiling. I know he got frustrated with me, but
let's turn this into a drinking game.
I have a great deal of respect.
All right, here's the drinking game. Every time you need to take a drink, drink.
Ricchetti and all them, I think look, we have different philosophies, Schwanza and the others. They're smart. I respect them. They were honest, and I thought we made a good agreement. As a president, I would engage more.
Anyone else want to propose a drinking game rule?
Look, you're the leader of the free world. All the other presidents, I think bringing people together is a better way, talking through stuff. When you're in those rooms, you can talk about all sorts of things.
Do you think opening an impeachment inquiry into him and the behavior of his son might have contributed to that?
To what part?
The part about you guys not communicating very much?
No, let's talk about that. You guys play, and remember what impeachment inquiry is. It is simply the ability to give the House, Republicans and Democrats, the power when you request for information. So if you were lawmakers, and I hold you in high esteem because you are investigative reporters in America, you're supposed to cover this stuff. When I came into
How about this for
power,
a
I
drinking
didn't know any
game?
of this.
Drink
I did
until
not
it
know
makes sense.
when he was vice president.
Drink
his
until it
family
makes
created
sense.
20 shell companies. I had no idea about that. Not saying that's wrong. I did not know they got 16 of the 17 payments from Romania while he was vice president, and he was supposed to be in charge of Romania. I didn't know that. I had no idea when a whistleblower came to us and said that the FBI has an informant they still pay who claims that the president was bribed by $5 million. And what's interesting, we had to fight to get that document. And when we got that document, it said it would be hard to find because he has a lot of shell companies. Then I had no idea that IRS agents would come to us. How would I know? They'd come to us and say, look, we've worked for 16 years. We don't have any political basis on the other side, but we're concerned with what's happened here. That DOJ allowed the statute of limitations to run out. That they weren't allowed to interview Hunter, because when they went and told the FBI, they told them. And then they even told the inaugural committee. I didn't know how that played.
Take a little drink for every super chat. How about that?
Hunter Biden's attorneys and tell
Only
them they
5%
didn't know
alcohol.
about, a storage
Won't be
unit
too
was
destructive.
before they could go there. The president told us he never had a meeting. He never talked to his son. Look, when he said he never talked to his son, I didn't believe that. I don't think it's wrong if you talk to your son. I want you to talk to your kids about anything, right? Doesn't mean you're influencing something. But he literally, I had no
10
idea.
pounds from Bry. Yeah,
That
more
the
alcohol.
partner to Hunter Biden that also served on the Ukrainian Energy Board.
Thank you, Bry, for your
he would literally
kind super
call in
chat.
meetings. And then he said,
Ooh, watermelon flavor,
they
nice.
were getting a lot of pressure, Burisma, to do something about the Ukraine prosecutor. And I did know the president tell the entire country that he withheld $1 billion of American taxpayer money to get rid of the prosecutor. And then we found out that the president not only called into meetings, that he went to Cafe Milano. He went to Cafe Milano more times and met with the foreign business partners of Hunter Biden than he has gone to the border in 50 years. But with each meeting that you went to Cafe Milano, and I've never had this happen. I've been to Cafe Milano, but I've never gotten a new Porsche the next day, and I never got $3 million wired to me from a Russian oligarch. So if you knew all of that, would you at least say, I think there's more things. We've never asked for the tax or the bank statements of the president, of Hunter, or anybody else. And these 20 shell companies had credit cards that were being paid. Now, this laptop that was supposed to be Russian that we now found out was Hunter, in there, he did say his father would take
$9.99
the
from
money
Christine Hall. Bottoms up.
He
Thank you
did
very
make-
much.
and
Cheers
we
to
did
you.
find out
Drink.
that the president, I didn't know this when I became speaker, used another name while he was vice president for emails. And in one of the emails, it said that it only went to him and his son, Hunter, and it was about a phone call he was going to have with the president of Ukraine. Now, if you knew all of that, would you say, oh, I don't have any more questions? Or would you at least, as a lawmaker, and you have a role here, wouldn't you at least say, okay, well, we're going to have to go get some more documents. And if you're going to get more documents, I just want to make sure if they're going to fight it and string everything out, that we can get it. That's all impeachment inquiry. Now, if that made the president upset, maybe he shouldn't have lied to us from the beginning. Yes.
Thanks, sir. Former President Trump was very active in supporting you when you won the Apple calling members. Mr. Gates, I know you said Mr. Gates is not telling the truth on several things. You claimed today that the former president was supportive of what he was doing to remove you. What was your experience talking to
I doubt if that's true. Yes, ma'am.
You've spoken about your fundraising prowess and the impact of that in flipping the majority this year. Last year, are you nervous that because of events today and general infighting within the conference, that the conference is at risk of losing the
Look,
majority?
I didn't say that. I was just told that by Democrats in their conference. That's what helped them make their decision. That a lot of their frontline, I think their quote was, why would we help the person that becomes our executioner? So, I mean,
KTLN gives $4.99. Say cheers. Cheers to you. Drink.
no, I'm sure Matt Gaetz will give the NRCSC a lot of money. He raised a lot online.
You mentioned that gave you kind of grudge against you as personal. Why do you think he has?
Num 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 num.
I'm not quite sure. I don't need to find out either. Look, judge me by my enemies.
Have you spoken to the former president at any point today?
No.
It's so much of an area of strategy for what the term has passed bills this year has been find consensus, the most conservative option, try and pass that, and then see if we can negotiate. Do you think that was the right tactic? Should Congress do that going forward, or would it be better
Well, let me ask you
to
this.
negotiate with Democrats earlier?
Let me ask you this. Would we ever gotten the debt ceiling? Schumer said never talk to us. Schumer went on a Sunday show, watch, Kevin's going to break. The president said he would never talk to me, that we just had to raise it. Had we not passed the bill, we never got it. So yes, I think it worked well. All right, yes.
What kind of role do you see yourself and want to see yourself playing in the party moving forward? Is that campaigning, or is there any other type of role you want?
Well, no, I'll continue to help all the way possible. Look, I've been very fortunate. When I came to Congress in my second term, I got to be Chief Deputy Whip. I got to be Majority Whip. I got to be Majority Leader. I've been Minority Leader, and I've been Speaker. I've been blessed.
Thank you, Shirori.
Something about
20 gift
10,000
memberships.
hours, I believe in it. A lot
Cheers.
of experience,
Drink.
and I believe in bringing new blood up and helping them, and I want to help them all the way. Look, I enjoy you. I don't know if you'll cover me as much, but I'm sure I won't miss you. But see you soon.
Oh, press conference is over. So we didn't go quite full till they drop, but it seemed like we're going in that direction. Well, that is the end of the press conference. So all those things. So yeah, that's good stuff. Just a program note, I probably will not be streaming tomorrow morning for a legal news roundup. I was talking with my moderator team behind the scenes, and we are reevaluating the content of the channel, as we do from time to time. We've been doing the legal news roundup thing for about 6 months, and we are looking at trying perhaps something else. So we are contemplating behind the scenes perhaps moving it to a different time of day, but exactly when that would be, we're not sure. And trying to find a consensus time is problematic, particularly as we contemplate other programs, because I don't know how long the stream is going to last, and I don't want to box myself into a particular length. So like one of the suggestions, for example, as we were sort of talking around from varying community members on the idea was, okay, we could stream at like 7 p.m. Eastern. Or 6 p.m. Eastern, maybe. It's like, well, if we do that, then we might run into Runkle on the Bailey on Mondays. We might run into Rob from Lawn Lumber on Fridays. And I don't really like the idea of fixing my show to a particular time. Like, I don't like the idea of like, well, if he's going to go live at 8, I'm going to go live at 7, therefore my stream is going to be an hour. It's like, I don't really like that idea. I don't really like the idea of being forced into a particular box. So, if we were going to stream at like 7 p.m., for example, every day, then we might be streaming up against Runkle or against Rob, which, we could do that, obviously, but, we have to contemplate the best thing in terms of what will work for our, what will work for the brand. And all the other things we were also thinking is people seem to like more, and it seems to be more receptive when we do more deep dive content, when we do like the deep dive we did recently on Scientology and their lawsuit. So, and Supreme Court stuff. Now, the Supreme Court, as I'm sure many of you know, is in session right now. It just started in session on Monday. And so they're starting oral arguments, so we can do like a Supreme Court oral argument every week. That was sort of an idea. So probably on Friday or Thursday, we'll do like a Supreme Court React where we'll do oral arguments from the Supreme Court this week. And then as there are major lawsuits, we will cover those in depth. For example, we will do continuing coverage of Remini versus Scientology. We will also do coverage where we're looking at another case, a Scientology from federal court dealing with trafficking allegations that we were looking at possibly covering. And we were also looking at the lawsuits between some of the sexual assault survivors as it relates to Danny Masterson. Some of them are proceeding as well civilly. And we were looking at possibly covering those cases as well, because we are of the collective opinion that those cases would be cases that would be of strong interest to people and would be things that people would enjoy watching us do a deep dive deconstruction of. So that's something that we were looking at. We are also going to cover the trial of the Crumbly parents. As you may be aware, they recently lost their bid at the state Supreme Court in what seemed to me to be quite cowardly. The Court of Appeals decision didn't make any legal sense to my mind. For the Crumblies, for those of you who may not remember, their child committed a mass shooting at a school, and it was alleged that the parents themselves are guilty, essentially, of negligent manslaughter, even though their child pulled the trigger, because it was foreseeable that he would engage in manslaughter and they didn't stop it. That's sort of the short of it. And I'm like, that doesn't legally work, but they're trying. And so that trial is going forward. So when that trial actually happens and is filmed, we'll be covering that. So there's a strong, so all that being said, there's a strong possibility that Legal News Roundup may not continue, or may only continue as a part-time thing, may only be parts of the week and stuff like that, but we haven't really fully committed. So we're looking at all that, trying to work into how the channel can grow and how we can make sure to appeal to the widest possible law audience, while also, of course, appealing to my particular strengths as a content provider. Like, how can I be the best content provider I can be, and how can we appeal to the widest possible audience while we're doing it? So those are just some of the ideas we're looking at in case you care about those things. So that's sort of where we're at. And yeah. We want to try to figure out how we can get wider live stream participation rather. When we do live streams, how we can get more people involved. So maybe that means we do fewer live streams. We put them out with more notice, maybe, and try to promote them more, or some other things we could do, but we're looking into possibilities. So I don't know if there's any questions about any of that, but that's sort of where we're sitting. Yeah. We want to try to figure out how we can get wider audiences and more appeal. We'd like to increase the number of live stream participants, viewer watch time, viewer participation, all that good stuff. So we're making progress. We'll take tomorrow off. Not for least reasons, I'm a little burned out. I spent pretty much all of Sunday editing. It was a very, very long edit day. Spent like the entire day editing. I was so burned out, from editing. I still feel it. So we'll take tomorrow off. May take Thursday off. We might do a stream on Friday. We'll see where we can go from there and press on. All right, so that's been all. So McCarthy will not be speaker. So I guess the most probable result is Jim Jeffries. Or Jim Jordan, apologize. Hakeem Jeffries is the Democrat. Jim Jordan is the Republican, apologize. So the most probable result is Jim Jordan at this point. He didn't want the job, but maybe he'll be pressured into it. We'll see. And we'll go from there. So, but I still feel like there's a non-zero probability that Hakeem Jeffries winds up as the speaker, because we're just in that kind of crazy of a timeline. I received notification for a video I produced 2 years ago. That's funny. That's funny. YouTube is funny. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. I hope all's well, my friends. Until later, my friends, peace. Cheers. You dislike Jordan? Really? I suppose there are people that don't like any particular member of Congress. I seriously doubt the 100% of this chat would like any member of Congress's name that we would mention. I think Jim Jordan is the highest probability. I think he'll get the widest support if he runs. I mean, I can't really see anyone else who can beat him in the party. So if he runs, I think he's got it. So we'll see. He seems obnoxious. He definitely has a particular style of communication. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. Hope all you guys are well. Till later, my friends. Cheers and goodbye.